What up?
Welcome to the Fog of Metawar.
You guys know that. So I feel like it's kind of, we're sort of a young poor man's version of the All In podcast. They did an emergency war pod this morning, so we'll follow that up with like a little bit more quality and insightful discussion.
A lot of more experience, um, compelling mental models to understand what's going on in the world through,
Modest.
unlike modesty, humility. So what is the Fog of Metawar, Tej?
The Fog of Metawar. Well, this is how I was thinking about it, and I jacked this name because I'm probably going to call my next article this. But you had the fog of war, right? The fog of war is when um, war starts and you have difficulty understanding what your opponent's going to do, what their capabilities are, and what your capabilities are. So there's all this complication. And to me, the fog of meta war, sort of more in line with our podcast, is how do you invest or position yourself based on the uncertainty of war? So you got the fog of the regular war, and then you got the fog of the investing war, and so that's sort of the meta war.
What's the thesis of your paper going to be?
Oh, I don't know. I'm probably just going to ramble about a bunch of things I don't understand. I think I'm actually going to have to put a disclaimer on this one, which says that, I know very little about these underlying topics. This is just my hot take of how I see the system.
This is not war advice. I'm not a general.
Not war advice. Did you guys hear about? I posted in the group. I figured you guys would be amped about it. Do you guys see all this shit about the ghost of Kiev?
Oh, was that one fighter jet?
Yes, it's the fucking. So
took down like 8 jets or something.
Yeah, I think he's taking down like six or 7 or 8 Russian jets. If he's real, if it's one dude with one plane, he's the first example of a 21st century ace. Like we haven't had one. This guy's just, his country's getting fucking invaded. He's just booling around in his plane, just obliterating Russians.
That's fucking sick.
I feel like that's who you wish you were.
Oh yeah. It's my spirit animal that I could never become because I don't have
time. Yeah, that's crazy. What's going on? Unfortunately, Shake and I aren't the most educated co-host. So.
No, I think you guys are underplaying it. Let's I don't know, what direction do you all want to take it? I mean, Shake, what's going on in NFT land? Like, crypto's been very odd over the last 24 hours, right? Like, right when the invasion happened, gold had an absolute rip to the upside. BTC shit itself. That's since reverted, and like liquid public crypto has done pretty well. Presumably, NFTs are weathering the storm just fine as uncorrelated cultural engines of brilliance.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I think they're just driven by different factors. And I also think that most NFT traders or collectors or whatever are not, I don't know. They're not as concerned with macro stuff. I think they like number go up technology.
That's kind of interesting. Like, that's an interesting conversation to be had. Like in a lot of ways, when something like an invasion happens, I feel like, at least for me, like yesterday, I felt kind of weird about like playing with internet money. But at the same time, to the extent that people have have exited like from the real world in a lot of ways, and like a lot of their meaning and their purchases and their culture and their friends are all online, right? Like there's a level of hedge there, right? Like what's happening in the land of NFTs is in a lot of ways self-contained, right? And so there's some folks that like are worried about macro and they're going to sell their NFTs. There are other folks that just like a lot of their lives are online, right? That's the economy that they care about. They're not really concerned about like, I don't know, food shortages or invasions, or it's just not really top of mind.
And I forget what the number was, dude, but it was like in January. Oh, here it is. 400,000 unique NFT buyers this is from Delphi Digital, was in January, which is pretty crazy because I mean, some of this macro concerns, at least about like inflation and the rate hikes and stuff, was happening, right? And it already, kind of been priced into Bitcoin and equities a little bit.
Definitely.
But at the same time, right, it was just the most booming period of NFTs ever. So yeah, I mean, everything you said, I agree with.
So NFTs are the war hedge, out with gold.
Yeah,
NFTs
we
are
don't
the
need
digital
oil.
gold.
Just
Yeah.
buy
NFTs.
JPEGs.
Gold is out. Gold is out.
Sorry, Shani, I gotta show you something. That's why I'm all distracted.
So you think, what do you think the U.S. is going to do with rate hikes now that presumably oil or price of gas is going to go up, et cetera?
So
Give me
I
your
think
speculations.
I think there's two dynamics there. I think the first is obviously a lot has changed, right? We're pricing in 7 hikes a month ago, and there's been an invasion since. And my guess is what the calculus looks like for the Fed, although I think quite poorly of the Fed. Maybe they haven't even been able to, drum up this logic. But my guess is for the moment, they hold steady. I think the risk of uncertainty and economic weakness that that's been caused by recent events probably more than offsets the risks that inflation pose. I think the other piece is when you think about why the Fed raises rates, one of the key pieces is, of course, to assuage inflation. But there's an assumption there, which is there's a piece of inflation, or maybe a majority of the inflation is caused by the demand side, which is to say people purchasing too much shit, money is too easy to get. So they've been printing too much. And if they print less, if they taper, if they raise the benchmark rate, then the offset in demand, lowering in demand should lower inflation. But I think that's sort of a misstep, right? Because a lot of the inflation, at least the way I see it, is supply side driven. It's about not having enough goods. There being delays, there being shortages, rather than there being too much money in the system. And I think like the invasion of Ukraine, it only strengthens the case that inflation may continue, but it's going to continue because there are energy shortages and there are food shortages, and we can't get basic raw materials to build new cars, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the calculus is such that if you're raising rates right now, like I'm not sure how much it necessarily achieves. At the very least, I think they're going to stay kind of still. And honestly, that might explain a lot of what's happening in crypto markets as well.
This dude doesn't like what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Then leave, bitch. Get the fuck out of here.
Let's get him on here. I want to hear his take on rate hike.
Dude, you wrote that article, and didn't you basically call that, like, you mentioned Russia as one of the countries that would adopt Bitcoin as legal tender?
Yeah, I
thought that was pretty sick call.
I did mention that.
Did you foresee this coming? This war?
He called it, dude.
I mean, what kind of sucks about that is, like, this is another. I mean, I'd be curious to hear what you guys think. But in the scenario where we try to sanction Russia, like with SWIFT, they could potentially, either Putin or oligarchs, look for a way to finance the war. That's not with dollars, right? And so if they adopt Bitcoin, Bitcoin could be reframed as war money.
I don't know if this is true either, but I saw something that that people were buying on local Bitcoins, that website in Ukraine. And it was like over 50K, the premium for it. I need to fact check that because it could have been.
No, I think that makes sense, and that would be the bull case here, right? That like the a bunch of Ukrainian officials, I think, bought $2 billion worth of Bitcoin in April, right? And so if the Ukrainian people resort to buying Bitcoin as like wealth that they can carry with them that can't be appropriated, and Ukrainian officials already have Bitcoin, that would make it less likely that Russia buys Bitcoin, which would really be terrible for the narrative, I think. I mean, the nature of Bitcoin is it's blind, right? Anyone can buy it. No one's going to get censored. So, Russians, North Koreans, whatever, that's the nature of the beast. It would just be ugly for the narrative if there was a sizable percentage of the owners that were Russians trying to circumvent sanctions. With that said, I think what you do see, and I think this is fairly interesting, in hindsight, an invasion like this kind of could have been predicted. If you look at the Russian government balance sheet, they're selling all their U.S. treasuries and they were amassing gold. And so they're probably going to finance their war effort with gold as opposed to BTC, but you definitely don't want the Russians buying BTC. It's terrible for our bags.
Yeah, so I'm checking right now. I mean, this is just one site, but there's on localbitcoins.com, and it looks like the cheapest price is 43.4K.
Damn.
In USD for one Bitcoin.
In Ukraine? Where at? In Ukraine or
So
Russia?
it's like 11% premium in Ukraine. I guess I could check Russia too. Right?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of tough to even reason about how it's going to affect crypto, except probably the more speculative stuff just gets kind of nuked because it has no value.
My bad.
But
I think that's shit's already been. It's happened for 3 months though, right?
yeah, it's just going to continue. So, but how it affects Bitcoin, yeah, I don't know.
If you look at I'm sure you guys saw the chart. A bunch of people were posting. Like in a lot of ways, like an invasion is the worst possible. War is the worst possible thing for equities and risk assets. But in a lot of ways, it's also like you think about how like markets are priced. Like everything's based on a probability, right? And when the invasion happens, that's when the 100% hits, right? And then all of the unpriced stuff prices in, and then markets can move on, right? So uncertainty is like the antithesis of markets. If you look at historical invasions, typically the day of an invasion marks a bottom in sentiment, and so price action that follows is typically really, really, really fucking good. So if you look at Vietnam, Gulf War, Afghanistan, Iraq, and maybe more accurately like the Crimea, typically price action is like pretty excellent after. I think the one tricky thing we have to deal with now is we have inflation, so that kind of fucks shit up a little bit. In some ways it's analogous, some ways it's not. But buy the war.
What do you think the odds of the U.S. invading are, or not invading, but like providing military support?
So I think we already have provided military support in a way, but it needs to be obfuscated because you can't trigger the NATO contract. So if one NATO, yeah, exactly. If one NATO fighter dies on Ukrainian soil, then there's some provision that gets triggered whereby all NATO countries have to commit to war, and then you deal with nuclear issues. So what I think all these countries will do is they'll provide sort of ancillary support to Ukraine via food and healthcare and weapons. But I don't think you'll see us send soldiers into Ukraine, maybe like Belarus and Poland. But I don't see that happening, especially given the nuclear arsenal that Russia has. Also, what's going to happen, which is I also think can be incredibly bullish crypto, is there's going to be a physical war, and then there's going to be another meta war, which is going to be just a sequence of cyber attacks, right? The sequence of cyber attacks from like the most powerful intelligence agencies of the world. And so Russia's no exception, right? So then they might target like an AWS or a Google, right? And that's going to change that's going to move the Overton window to where people not only think about the censorship of their money, but the censorship and single point of failure of like the very infrastructure that like we rely on.
Yeah. I guess I keep thinking like, I know some people are calling for more support from the US, I guess besides sanctions, but it just seems like collectively we don't have the gusto right now to support. Like I obviously wasn't around for similar events like this, but like coming off of COVID, and not getting basically accepting failure in the Middle East already. It's like I don't think anyone's like super confident that we can really just like unilaterally help, right? Which is kind of crazy. Like obviously we can still provide a lot of support, but it's not like if we just decide to, we can go fix everything. Definitely speaks to like American hegemony waning, which it's been, but it's kind of nuts. We're just like we're still a superpower, but we're not the superpower at all. That's really my only takeaway from the situation, or not my only takeaway, but main takeaway.
Yeah. I mean, I also worry that I don't know. I worry that a whole bunch of other bad actors that have just sort of been in the wings for a while because they're worried about geopolitics and global perception are going to be emboldened by this. Also, I think that's not also a great dynamic.
Yeah, like end of history, right? Like Cold War ends. It's like Western democracy. It's just going to be the only thing that's the final conclusion on how like men organize or society organizes, and then like I feel like now it's like now that I mean people have been saying it's the end of history, but I feel like if this keeps going the way it is, it's like a testament to that, where it's not like democracy is the best. I mean, you can say that's been the case, China, etc., but it's definitely interesting.
So what else you guys got? What other than Russian warfare and geopolitical games?
How do you guys feel about like the fact that this is going on, but it's not like you can materially affect it? Like, I guess what's
I mean, I don't know. I feel weird even having this conversation, because I'm like, damn, like, is it fucked up that we're talking about? I mean, I don't even know. Is it fucked up? But it's like, it's just weird that we're talking about, oh, it's just bullish for Bitcoin, and it's, I'm laughing, but it's, people are like getting killed and shit, and so it's, I don't know. It's just crazy. I feel like it kind of reminds me of the same feeling of right when COVID started. And at least me, I was like, dude, I was tripping out. I thought like we wouldn't have water and it would be like a zombie apocalypse. You know what I mean? It just felt like complete unknown, like what's going to happen. And I kind of have a sense of that right now, but yeah, it's definitely weird because it's not on my doorstep, but yeah, it feels historic. Like it feels like, oh, this is going to be, people are going to talk about this in 50 years.
Yeah. No, I mean, yesterday was like a pretty horrible day. I mean, like I talked to my whole family, like, not that the U.S. is affected, right? But like the beginning of COVID yesterday, like the family had the impulse that we should think about, if shit falls apart and if flights aren't working and if infrastructure doesn't work, like what's going to be our plan? Like everyone got cash out of the ATM. Like that's kind of what you do. And I agree that like yesterday playing with internet money sounded like woefully trivial, right? But I think ultimately you donate to the extent that you can or would like to. But other than that, you're not going to go fight, right? So it's kind of like you dig back down into what you've been working on for as long as you can, because that's ultimately where you provide the most value to the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, I feel like
that's well said. I mean, like, what can you do? Sit around and worry about it? I mean,
yeah,
I agree.
And it's kind of like, this is another like all-in analogy, I suppose. But did you guys see when Chamath just got jammed up so hard for saying that no one cares about the Uyghur Muslims? Do you remember that?
Below my line.
Below my line, yeah. It's like,
yeah.
It's like, yeah. If we're on this pod saying that, like, Ukraine is below our line, be like, fuck these guys. All they do is talk about fucking price action when a war is going on. But like ultimately, like for the most part, if nothing changes, right, and let's say like I don't know, the war settles down a bit, or even it keeps going, like, are we going to care nearly as much in a month? Probably not, because like we have our own lives to live, right? It's just sort of the nature of the beast, and I feel like circumventing that or claiming that's not the case is just dishonest.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like the weird part is like, I feel like a lot of people are generally, well, you make a fork whether you're super engaged with the news and politics and like that, or you're like, okay, I'm not going to participate in it because I can't control it. It's like we're in that latter camp. But when something like this happens and you're like, you don't really have any faith with people who are running the show, and it actually could like materially affect your life if they mess up. Like, it's not guaranteed that they don't mess up. That's where it's just like, you're like, damn, I really don't like the structure of things. Like, I don't know if anyone has confidence in like the U.S. government, even whether you're Democrat or Republican or whatever, right now, that they're just going to make the right decision. And I feel like this is like, it's kind of feel like we're not in the optimal structure to handle stuff like this right now, obviously.
So question for you guys, which may be insensitive because people are actually going through this, but obviously there's a conscription in Ukraine, right? Everyone between the ages of 18 and 60 has been called to bear arms. If like, would either of you have like ultimately any intention for like fighting for this country unless you were forced to?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean,
Like,
I kind of wish I
as
did.
it stands right now, no.
And yeah,
patriotism is very low right now.
And I think that's kind of like, my guess is this would be the consensus answer across at least our demographic, right? Like no one, I don't think people do feel like that sense of duty to the state or the country at all. And that kind of maps on like general civic erosion, right? Like people are forming tribes outside of the nation. But I don't think that's the case everywhere, right? And it's almost like the reason that was the case, in my view, in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, and then waning into the 70s, is like we had a common enemy as a nation. Like the US wasn't established as like the dominant economic and military powerhouse. There was a possibility that other big powers could infringe upon our rights. And by virtue of that common enemy, like sort of like a Girardian, there was a cohesion at home. Whereas now, I think, especially in the West, the assumption is that the US is the best and we got the dollar and we got a big army and no one can fuck with us. But I wonder if like at this moment, when you realize that a nuclear power just unpromptedly invaded an ostensibly independent nation, like I wonder if this might be sort of the start of the West generally realizing that like all the little like bullshit things we argue about, like all the identity politics and religion and politics and just all of the shit that fills our day to day in our timelines, like that actually doesn't matter at all. And you've got a nuclear power. So I wonder if there is like a reversion back to a patriotism by virtue of that threat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I hadn't thought about that. I think there's definitely a possibility. Yeah. And I'd be like, I mean, it would be a good thing for our country for sure.
Yeah. I do feel like part of the issue is just like the leadership in government is not strong. And like, I think the older I get, I do think people at the top just like kind of willing things to be better makes a big difference. And I feel like we've just slowly had the government leadership hollow out in the sense of like really caring about what happens. Like I feel like it's more, and politics has evolved into like just being in control more than like some sense of like doing what's better for the country, and making sacrifices, etc. Um, in like a crazy way, I almost compare it. Like I know this has a lot of holes, but like it's like a founder versus someone who steps in like later and just keeps the ship running, and then ends up doing like politics inside of a company just to keep control. Like that's what I think of our government leaders. They're just doing politics to be at the top, not to like try to push society forward. And I don't know. I feel like we lack that type of leadership at the top. And that's the type of people that'll like make sacrifices or make hard choices, and you kind of need those people.
I agree with that.
I'm kind of in almost the benevolent dictator camp now, which has been a crazy reversion for me. But those type of people are kind of what make things push things forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about incentives, right? And a benevolent dictator has a longer timeline, right? Like they have the incentive to make things better for their constituents over as long as they're able to rule. Whereas like Biden, who is going to go for re-election in 2 years, is probably not going to blast sanctions on Russia, force oil prices through the roof, and have his constituents not be able to drive to work.
Yeah. Or even our lack of power has been from like just serial short-term thinking, right? Like we can't sanction them because we still rely on them for energy, and we don't invest in energy because it's like a long-term thing. And it's easier to criticize fracking than it is to like build a new solution. So we ban fracking, and then we just import from Russia, and now we can't dom them with the financial sanctions, and it's like we've just slowly given up a lot of sovereignty by, I think, being short term. And we're short term because like the people at the top are just, I mean, they're in it for politics. Like, I mean, I know that's not true across the board, but it definitely feels like that at the top.
It's to shift gears. Well, sort of shift gears. It's also interesting to see Bitcoin enter like the secular political discussion. You guys see Ted Cruz's bit?
Yeah, I watched that.
Do you remember like a year ago when we were all talking about like, like if only crypto was on Apple Pay, and like if only people realize, if only crypto mainstreams, and now it's just like all this shit has happened in the last 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Visa bought a goddamn crypto punk. Ted Cruz is saying the word Bitcoin. It's just like absolutely.
It was so weird to hear him say, "That's why I'm bullish Bitcoin." I was like, dude, it felt like I was watching a skit, And then it was funny too. Like I kind of noticed that the crowd, they were like cheering about certain things. Then he said that, and they were almost like, "What the fuck?" They were kind of surprised by it. Not like they were anti, but it was just, yeah. I mean, you're right though. That's the mass adoption, right? I mean, to some degree, yeah.
Shit.
Everybody knows about it, right? The Super Bowl we had recently, and how many crypto ads were there?
Yeah.
I think the freaking like Ukraine posting on Twitter memes about Russia is the most like surreal thing I've maybe ever. Like
what are they posting?
I don't think I saw that.
Oh, they just been posting like pictures of like Putin with like Hitler, like cartoon versions of that, and like literally talking about
like
Russia
the country
being evil
Ukraine's
on
Twitter
Twitter.
account?
Yes, their verified Twitter
Dude,
account.
What?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's like this timeline is so weird.
You're saying that Ukraine has a full-time meme officer.
Yeah, it's like the propaganda.
Bro, this is
like
crazy, dude. Oh my god, I did not know this. I'm glad you said this. Look at this, dude.
Fire a meme up, yeah.
Look at this shit. This is the Ukraine verified. Yes, look at their bio, bro. Yes, this is the official Twitter account of Ukraine. Nice pics. It's like, what, dude? That's wild. And didn't Putin make some announcement like on Instagram?
Yeah.
I forget what it was, but I saw somebody tweeting about that. Yeah, I mean that's another. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Bro, why don't this
People
is
on
where
Twitter got to be freaking out.
we should be
It's
we
like,
should
what
be,
is? We should be what?
we should be wielding our technological dominance. Like, how is Russia not being like deplatformed from fucking Instagram? Like, I don't understand. Like, how are they not being deplatformed from like Google? Like, what? That's our
I
powerhouse.
think he was like making a bunch of it. I think he was making like new accounts, maybe.
Yeah, but you can just geo block the region.
Yeah,
but
actually,
I feel like
Apology
Instagram might even be too up to just block everyone in Russia, right?
Well, that's fair. That would be problematic.
Apology had like a tweet like, oh, like because people are like, why don't the U.S. tech companies do something? And he's like, well, once they do that, like there's going to be like it's one thing to deplatform Trump, but then it's another thing to deplatform like basically a country. Then they're gonna.
It's one thing to deplatform Trump, and it's another thing to deplatform Putin.
No. From like I'm not saying like, no, I mean from retaliation perspective. Like if Instagram just deplatformed the Russian president and like stopped serving Russian people, and you're talking about cyber warfare, like there's retaliation from Russia on US tech companies. Where like when they deplatformed Trump, it was like consensus among most people, especially in government at the time, because it was like going to be blue that they should deplatform them. There was going to be, if anything, there was more retaliation from them not deplatforming him, right? Do you get what I'm saying? It's not about like what's right or wrong. It's about like the companies not wanting.
It's ultimately like about. I mean, it's business in the end, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Let's leave like the Russian people out of it for a second, right? Like, deplatforming Trump was not only the right decision. I mean, I actually think it was the wrong decision, but the right decision from a moral perspective, but also a commercial perspective. I don't see how the deplatforming of Putin is different, because even though it might be right morally and commercially, you're unloading a Pandora's box of retaliation.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying, and that's why they'd probably be more hesitant, especially if you think that like Russia's, like they have cyber warfare, like tactics that they could deploy against you. Was it ever like, I actually don't know this, which shows my ignorance. And the whole like energy was going out on the East Coast. Was that like confirmed to be like a cyber attack?
Oh, I don't know.
Like last year.
Last year. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember.
Dude, I hate to be so trite, but this is definitely some sovereign individual thesis stuff where it's just like like there's just anarchy,
Yeah, it's complete anarchy. It's moments like these that you want to own land.
Yeah, ideally somewhere warm. You're in land, and I'm saying New York is kind of
ideally somewhere that's not next to the freezing cold Hudson River.
Yeah. Because if the electricity goes out, dude, if the electricity went out right now in Chicago, be in some trouble. Dude, that's the easy way to lose a lot of weight. Have all the electricity go out.
Oh, Shake, to follow up on your sort of triathlon event. What did you call it? What was the event you called it?
Oh, I said it's going to be like a combine.
A combine, right? To follow up on your combine, I'm curious, which sort of events are included, and does the being lightweight and having like fasted for 4 months, does it get you ahead or does it get you behind?
Being like definitely losing weight for both of us will be good, I think, because we're gonna do. I don't even know what the things are. Like the trainer, we do like little agility things, body weight endurance kind of exercises, and then we do like heavy compound lifts too. So it's going to be like, I think, a mix of all that stuff.
So you need like a mixed composition. Like you want to be literally as fat as possible and as muscular as possible for the compound lifts. But
Right.
you're gonna get jammed up on the pull-ups and the push-ups.
Exactly, dude. It's hard. You had to be really well rounded.
To give the people some context, Shake and a friend are having an exercise combine in 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's fun. I don't want to fucking do a combine.
I was talking about it with Chris. And Chris was like,
Chris has got me beat on the deadlifts, no doubt about it.
Yeah. I mean,
What's
you
your
have an
dead
edge
at?
on me.
Chris,
405. I was sore for a while though.
for 1 rep max.
Yeah.
Nice, dude.
I tried to go in there and do 105 with the dumbbells on bench, and I think I almost dislocated my shoulder. Like going from here, like it was literally just such like so much force that the shoulder almost popped out.
Holy shit.
Not actually, but like I definitely was like kind of scared. Which is kind of crazy, honestly.
Dude, I feel like Chris, when you and I were at the gym, something very similar happened. Like it's like
Yeah.
cranking reps, and then the weights just like fell through my shoulder. I just couldn't handle the juice.
Yeah, honestly, it's like it's amazing that the shoulder doesn't constantly dislocate. It almost doesn't make sense. It's just like a lot. I mean, I guess when you have more muscle, but it's a lot of just like what's it called, ligament, just like holding it in place, and you just stretch it out and rip it over time, and there's nothing holding it in there.
I mean, I feel like it's definitely one of the weak points of the body. I feel like that's why so many people have shoulder problems. It's like the knee. I guess maybe it's like any hinge, but I feel like a lot of people, adults, have fucked up shoulders.
Yeah. So, I mean, every time you try to put a little bit more weight on there, that's why you just plateau. You're just like, I don't know if it's worth the extra couple pounds to get stronger to be out of commission for 6 months.
And it is worth it. I feel like when we were lifting that day, that was like a few days into Shake's boycott of us. Shake was off harvesting Shaney credits.
Yeah, we were joking about how we saw you for like 2 weeks straight, and then you disappeared because you needed to get the Shaney emissions.
Honestly, I mean, part of it is just like I'm just less likely to do anything because I'm just working, Definitely a couple days. Definitely, I had to spend a little. I had to pay my dues a little bit, but
yeah, it was a yield farm.
Like I was just down here, like seeing you guys, and I'm just like, dude, I'm fucking.
You're in the hole.
Yeah,
I mean, we didn't do anything fun after we left.
No,
except one night. One night we went out, talked to some girls, and then got throttled.
Got throttled.
Jammed up.
Yeah, we got jammed up.
I got right out.
DJ was trying to jam, and then he got jammed, inevitably.
Yeah. It's a lesson. The jammer gets jammed.
Yeah, you gotta jam wisely.
Pick your jams.
Yeah, you gotta pick your jams. Yeah, so I guess the TLDR here is like, no one knows what's gonna happen. Any of this stuff, especially us. Like, it was crazy. I was like, yesterday, I was like, I really want to like just read something that's gonna tell me what to think. It's like,
Right.
can't like Peter Thiel come out and give a little speech and tell me what to believe?
Like, I think,
or maybe Anatoly.
Dude,
Totally would have a good take.
I feel like Totally. Well, I thought Totally posted about something, but anyway, like I think like most people don't know what the fuck is going to happen, right? So I feel like especially in the short term, like if you do spend the time to dig through all of the extant information, and you develop a view with some level of probability, and you put that probability to work via investment. Like you could definitely get rewarded here. I mean, there's certain like tons of people that are like quote unquote macro experts that know specific dynamics of geopolitics or like certain specifics about certain parts of the world. But I don't think anyone really understands like the whole system. And so it's really anyone's game, like to go in there and interpret the facts for what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Like I'm certainly gonna have a go at it.
You gotta do your best given your situation. I do hope when we're older, we got better leadership and at the top. That's all. That's really my only takeaway from my personal life.
You got to pay him though, right? Like I feel like when I mean I don't know what your guys' parents have said or what stories they've told you, but like when my mom and dad tell me about their growing up, like being a politician was something that was kind of revered. It was like a goal, right? Like you would go to school, you get good grades, you would go get college educated, and then hopefully you would like be on a track, like a political track. And like the government created ARPANET, and the government, the NSA and the CIA were like capable agencies. Maybe they still are, but like it strikes me that now that cachet is not here, and they get paid like shit. So like, why would someone not go into private industry? Like, why would someone who could make money doing literally anything else and be insulated from the bullshit that is politics? I just don't see unless there's a structural change, I don't see any reason why there would be on balance smarter people in positions of leadership, political leadership.
Yeah, I mean you can also become like a lobbyist or something, right? And you just make a shit ton of money and you still are kind of influencing politics.
Yeah, you could become a lobbyist and just make so much guap being like right outside of government.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't think people pick what they do just for money, especially later stage. Like, I feel like, yeah, I don't know. If you're older and you've already made enough, then you don't need to keep, like, from 50 onward, you could theoretically, do things that make less money. And I also think it's a cultural thing. I don't think too. I mean, it's probably cultural and structural, I guess. Like people feel like they can't make an impact doing politics, so they don't. And maybe if they thought they could make, or not politics, but like government, working in the government.
I mean, that's a good point though. Like at some point, there are many capable business leaders that are like post-financial, right? And they would look out for like higher order objectives than what's immediately in front of you, which is like making enough money that you're comfortable, that you can buy what you want, that you can put your family in the best healthcare and schools. Like I feel like that's something that has come up, which is like there should just be like a band of like very successful like Silicon Valley exiters that run, right? And they run on like a platform of new policies and new objectives that seem to match like the current state of affairs. They might do fairly well. It's also kind of like that viewpoint is kind of like the Silicon Valley solves everything viewpoint, but I do think there's something there.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, it would almost be like politicians or like the people running the government would, like, it would be good if they didn't get paid anything, like almost like if you did it so because you'd already like removed yourself somewhat from the financial need to do it, and it's like more of just like you're playing some larger game, like you care. But I feel like it's not like that, actually. It's like getting in government is a way to make money if you're a certain type of character. So, but I mean, I don't know.
What you could also build in, right, is I feel like one of the problems with moving things forward as a politician is there's no incentive to do so because you're not going to get rewarded, and it's hard to actually track your policy decisions with results, B, and third, like the timeframes are too short for you to have any sort of long-term horizon. Like I do wonder if there is like an opportunity to structure like a set of incentives that allows for politicians to be rewarded granularly based on outcomes in the real world. Like for example, like you can build crypto economic systems that take certain inputs and deliver value automatically, right? Like this is like a decentralized insurance protocol. I do wonder if you could find a way to take a bunch of inputs, the inputs being policy decisions, and then measure a bunch of outputs. And if you can trace the two together and a politician's move the needle, like they get rewarded in some way.
Yeah. Honestly, like this is Balaji has riffs on this, like the network state, and then even like politicians somehow having tokens that track how well they're doing. Like I think you're saying like just like you have a REIT tracks how well, like it's a
Just like you
rough
have a what?
proxy. A REIT, real estate investment trust, like tracks the value of an area.
Okay.
If you could kind of extend that, right? Like you're a politician in a certain area, or you're a government leader, and you have this value mechanism that's tracking how well that area is doing. You should be incentivized to boost it in the long term. I feel like the counter argument to that is like public companies are kind of like that, and then you have these CEOs that basically, like, yeah, you have CEOs that do things that are short term to pump their stocks, and then aren't good for the long term health of the company, right? Like,
well, the problem with both of those is that there's a public liquid token that measures the progress, right?
mm-hmm.
Whereas if you built like a private market solution that had a certain horizon built into it, you could basically just like align the policies along that certain horizon. Like obviously if like DeSantis had a DeSantis token, right, and he knew he was going out of office, like he would try to pump the token over the next year, not necessarily to like the long-term benefit of anyone. But if the idea was that, DeSantis had an 8-year term and you built like a series of contracts that measured how well he did at the end of those 8 years, that measured a variety of things, let's say like, like infant mortality, early death, like homelessness, GDP, whatever. And only upon like satisfaction of those things would he even get his coins. Like, I feel like there is a way, I think.
Yeah. I guess I wonder like who makes up the criteria,
Yeah.
like, and et cetera, and how do those stay adaptive? So like, things change. Like, I guess the beauty of
what if the people?
Yeah, I mean,
and they would probably just be like maximum UBI given.
Yeah, it'd be like these DAO, these DAO votes where people just do the dumbest thing. I feel like the beauty of public tokens is that like no one has to agree on why the value is what it is. It's like a process and it can be adaptive, but then it's also gameable in the short term because people are just trying to make it go up.
Right.
And then the issue with like private criteria, like you're saying, that's like rigid is like, it can be more explicit and ideally it can be designed better, but then it's also rigid and not adaptive. And maybe like you realize after a year that it's not tracking what you want it to track.
Yeah. No, I think that's very fair.
Honestly, like, classic takeaway, I'm just amazed anything even works at all. Like, I guess that the government even functions as well as it does trying to govern 300 million people. Like, everyone in crypto can barely even handle a DAO and with surplus money, let alone,
I feel like most people, or a lot of people in crypto, are just like so good at what they do and fairly bright and quick and understanding the landscape, but like it's like they don't like know how to cook or like exercise, or like I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are just like retired to cyberspace.
Yeah.
Like if our systems fell apart, like I wonder wonder, I guess for anyone, including myself, our systems fell apart. Like how well any of these folks would do. These very post-decadent characters that we are would do.
Yeah. At one point in my life, I was like, I'm really spending too much time like trying to become a good software engineer. This is gonna like, if anything bad happens, like I'm gonna be useless, you know? And I was like, like I'm not gonna spend the time to be a well-rounded person because that's not gonna get me to the top. And now, we're gonna have no gas and nothing's gonna work, and then I'm just gonna die.
But dude, you work out like most software engineers. You're probably, 90th percentile of like,
I mean,
survival.
I just like move a
skills
bar
for a
up and
software
down.
engineer.
Like I can't go hunt or do anything useful.
That's true. It's not really useful for survival. That's true.
It's just like a static exercise.
Yeah.
You're gonna hunt.
TJ does shit though. I mean, I feel like TJ does shit to prepare for that.
Yeah, TJ's the
Swinging
most
from
ready.
the trees and shit like that.
I will say, I think I would do pretty well in an apocalypse.
Yeah, I think you would too.
Honestly,
I don't think me or Chris would do like bad. Like we would do better than average, but we wouldn't be like stellar,
Well, we would also. I mean, I think part of what would happen is like, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, but in an apocalyptic scenario, like we would have our tribe, right? And so we've all got little specialties. Realistically, Chris would have to figure out how to rig up, the hardware that we need to get like electricity and to filter our water. Yeah, I don't know necessarily what I would contribute. Shake, you'd contribute something. Like we would definitely.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do either. I mean, dude, who'd be good to go with would be like Shaney's family out in the farm. Like they know how to hunt and like have pickup trucks and shit like that.
They won't even be affected. They'd just be like, what
know how to grow food and know how to hunt. I mean, like they're fucking set.
Yeah, we're just LARPing. I mean, if you ever like actually think about what would happen if the internet went out, like,
I was thinking about that yesterday. I mean, just catastrophic. Everything. I mean, I don't know. I ultimately don't know how I would get home from here. I guess I would. I mean, I would probably. So I have some cash. I would probably sell my technology for more cash and buy a car and then go vaguely north and east and hope for the best.
Yeah, you could get home.
But I mean, it would just.
It would be hard. You'd learn some Spanish.
It's almost worse than the food going out, like your internet. That's the protocol of life.
Yeah, it's even hard to believe that our parents didn't have the internet growing up. Like that's how dependent we are on it in terms of like figuring out how to do anything, And yeah, we're just so codependent of it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a coevolution there, right? Which is like, yeah, like now our world is like so deeply intertwined with there being bandwidth. Like if you pulled our bandwidth, we'd
die. No, we'd figure it out, but it'd be tough. I mean, the good thing is like the internet's pretty robust. You just like would start walking until you got back into an area where they hadn't taken down the network.
Well, but that's the thing. I don't really know how these things work, but my understanding is like it's sort of modular. Like, but ultimately there are plenty of single points of failure. I mean, that's why like parts of the whole East Coast went down, right? It's not like they targeted like every router, but there was one central hub or router that went down and took out a whole region. Like if that happened in your region, you'd be walking for a long time.
Yeah, I know that was a dumb statement.
And that's what I took. Good.
Yeah, I have thought about this. It's like you're, that you're becoming super dependent on this thing that like makes you overfitted for the environment you're in. Like just giving up your personal independence to be able to like so dependent on the internet. and you know there's this like case where it goes out and you're screwed, but you also know that like that's probably not going to happen. And if you don't adopt the internet, like all your peers are going to, and they're going to leave you behind. So then what do you do? I mean, you could just go crazy and like go Walden or whatever the Unabomber, and go live isolated because you like really take it to the extreme. But more likely than not, you're just gonna like go along with the tide and be addicted to the or like not addicted but codependent on the internet.
Definitely. I mean, I think the key is like you're not going to unplug from like the internet, right? Like it's positive EV clearly to like lean in almost as deep as you can to leverage social relationships, your career, your ability to publish information, whatever. But like for a certain type of person, maybe I'll just speak for myself. Like I feel like you do that, but not at the cost of understanding at least enough about how other systems work to be dangerous or at least afloat in a pretty tragic scenario. And also just like having that understanding of how other systems work inform how the broader system works, right? Which just makes you like more adept, I think, regardless of where you are. I mean, it's a classic specialization but versus generalization bit. Like if you're making money and you're deriving satisfaction from going really, really deep on something, like that sort of makes sense, right? But if you're someone else who has like extra time and you can allocate that time towards like, dicking around and like, watching television and doing this and doing that, those things drive value for you, great. But there's an argument that some portion of that time could be used to understand like broader systems such that if things really fall apart, for example, you'd know at least who to go to for help or what resources to lean on such that you're not just like inert and fucked.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it's all spectrum, right? Like to the extent of which you'll need to flex different skills.
So what would you guys do? Let's say internet goes down, electricity goes out, food shortages. I guess, Chris, you're at home with the fam. You would probably just stay posted, right? Defend the squadron.
Defend the squad. I mean, I think I would just need to go out and figure out where the able bodies are.
It would get crazy in Chicago.
Yeah, it would be fucking
it would get gnarly. Because it's like a super packed city, but if you compare Chicago to like another dense city like New York, I mean, New York, there's like very few people have guns in New York City because of the laws. Chicago, they do though. They be packing. I heard.
Yeah, dude, I don't know. I feel like you'd have to immediately, because like we're so disbanded from our like local neighbors, I feel like you'd really quickly need to figure out. You need to go out basically and try to figure out and find good people, and just squat up with them and start making alliances.
Yep.
Like, there's no way your family with like your old parents are gonna be able to do stuff. So you'd like, okay, you guys stay here. I'm gonna go try to find some other people 20 to 30 that I can get into cahoots with and bring home some bacon. Yeah. Crazy to think about, really. I wish there was like a greater sense of patriotism, because I feel like it'd be like, like if I had to serve in the government or the military and like learn all this like cyber security shit, like I feel like that would be actually the most important thing. Like besides, it's like you get talented people, have them go work in like the intelligence agencies and like cybersecurity and prepare for those wars. Like if we all did that, like 22 to 24, that would be really bullish America. But instead, like, none of that, which kind of sucks.
That's exactly what happens in Israel.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it's bullish for so many different reasons, right? Like it's not that people are patriotic and then so that they're down to, put in their service, but there's also like a reflexivity to it where like everyone's expected to do the service and everyone recognizes as like a legitimate part of the cohesion of society. And so that makes them more patriotic, but also kind of to your point, if that's the expectation, like people come out at 24 ready for the job market, having literally been in charge of troops and trying to understand like how to do like triage and healthcare on the battlefield, like how to conduct a cyber attack, like all this shit that's like very high quality skills to have. It's actually interesting you say that thing about cybersecurity. I was talking to my brother yesterday, and he was kind of saying the same thing. Like he was like, I should be using my skills, or at this moment, I feel like I should be using my skills not to like query Solana NFTs, but instead to like make a dent in clearly the largest threat to democracy at this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know when you asked us before, like, would you guys go to war? And I was kind of like, I immediately said no. I was thinking about it more, and I don't know if I'd actually stick with that answer.
I mean, look,
because like, dude, it's like, so, whether you agree with what is going on in our country is kind of a different issue,
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you felt compelled about what the country stood for, that the leaders were doing their best, and that like there's just no loyalty right now, right? Like if anything, a lot of people just don't trust, like at least at the federal government. They're just like, oh, it's just like it's there and it keeps stability, but no one's like, oh, they're gonna do anything to make a dent in the world. I mean, even the people people that care a lot are still very bearish on the competency of the government. Like they want it to be better and they're frustrated by it and they pay attention to it, but I don't think they have any confidence in it to do anything. That's what I was kind of saying, like the benevolent dictator. Like if the people at the top, you're like, oh, they're gonna make good decisions. I'm like, okay, you tell me to do this thing, like, okay, I'm gonna do it because I trust them. Like I feel like we don't have that, like, awe-inspiring leaders.
Definitely not. But I think to maybe mediate the two points of view is like, I don't think any of us probably would willingly go fight abroad, right? If Biden asked us to, right? I think that's honestly less about whether we believe in the authority or capability of Biden, and more so a matter of it not being existentially relevant to our lives. I think if we were invaded on home soil, we would all take up arms just by virtue of us having families and us wanting to defend ourselves. And I think for like that very reason, and like maybe this is getting into a topic that's a little bit messier, but like that's the reason to me why the right to bear arms is important. It's not like it's a situation like Ukraine. Like that's why that protection is there, right? It's in case you need a civilian militia that needs to protect its own survival. So anyway, if we were invaded, like we wouldn't just lie down and take it, right? Like we would stand up and try to protect what is ours, regardless of if Biden or anyone in the administration was either competent or required of us.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you guys want to confirm, just confirm on tape that you agree with the right to bear arms?
I'm a law-abiding citizen.
Yes.
I don't think is that hot take. I guess it is a hot take for some people.
Nah,
I feel like anyone who's watching.
I used to have a gun, dude. Of course, I agree. I don't know if I've told you guys that. When I was in the loo, dude, I was packing that heat, baby.
DJ, do you want to acknowledge on tape that you agree with the Second Amendment? Dude, I owned a gun.
Yeah. Acknowledge.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Like, I feel like the U.S. government, as it is, well, I guess it could just go on a long time like this, like kind of just like hollowed out structure that maintains stability. Like it just kind of doesn't do anything. But I feel like at some point there's going to be a shakeup, right?
I might be now. Like inflation is here, right?
Like, what does that mean? Like, the dollar gets so weak that
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, like one of the core drivers of like a civil war, just like a internal conflict in a nation is like when economic conditions are bad and people can't like look after their families in basic ways. And they're going to blame the government, whether the government has control over it or not. Like, I think that's kind of a potential for shakeup that we haven't had since mid '90s or something. I don't know. But that's bad, right? That's bad. If people can't drive to work and if people can't like afford like basic foodstuffs, like that's a no bueno scenario.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think there's worlds where like the US fractures into smaller subsets, like smaller countries?
You mean like legitimately like pairs off, creates borders?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a world. I mean,
I feel like,
I don't know how high probability.
okay, what do you you know, like so that like assumes like the spatial bounds being like contiguous, which is like higher likelihood. Do you think, you know, like biology talks about network states? Like, how likely do you think that is?
I mean, I feel like that's already kind of the state of affairs, right? I mean,
So
I
maybe
guess
the network states start caring more about cybersecurity because they like maybe this wakes them up that like, you know, like these more loosely configured groups start figuring out cybersecurity so that they can be more formidable.
against attack.
Yeah. I mean, that I feel like that's actually probably the scariest part for us, right? Like I don't know. I guess like an escalation and there being like nuclear repercussions is obviously the scariest thing, but that's pretty. I feel like that's lower likelihood than like cyber warfare.
Definitely,
That's
definitely.
so.
But I also think in a cyber warfare scenario, like I would I see it as unlikely that someone launches a sustained cyber war against the US just by virtue of the sheer engineering talent that we have. I mean, if you wanted to mobilize the engineering talent from Web 2 and Web 3 and rechannel that like during wartime into either cyber offensive or cyber defensive, like we would fuck up any nation.
It's true.
Like, dude, if
We'll stop playing our NFT games.
if we put you in a fucking in a mine for a year and told you to learn how to cyber attack shit, like I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that.
Yeah, let's get the boys in a little hacker house, cyber warfare hacker house.
Dude, people on Twitter have been saying you're an 1,000x engineer. I don't want 1,000 times cyber attack leverage.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. Maybe like a 2x. Dude, I wish. I wish someone like there was just some people that'd be like, all right, we're enlisting. Any willing engineer will teach you like the state of the art of of laying siege in cyberspace. I'd be like, I'll sign up. That sounds so fun. Like that's honestly part of the fun of crypto is it's so adversarial.
Yes, it is.
And like cyber warfare would be like that, like times 100, and you'd also feel like it had purpose. Maybe like protect my country. I guess some people must be doing that, but like I don't know anyone who's doing that. Like maybe it's just our circles.
I think that that gets back to the government, the concerning bit. Like I think you can make so much money in the private sphere that are you really going to go to be like a cyber attack specialist for the NSA? I mean, some people,
Yeah.
but you got to be like a really good person of like higher order objectives, you know. Yeah, that ain't me.
You're telling me my objectives are too lower order.
I'm telling you your objectives are too primal and lower order, and you got to level.
That's true. I'm pretty lower order. uh, Well, honestly, I feel like this is just good for us to chat about things and talk about it with someone else.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good, clean fun. Maybe we'll have to reconvene and I'll take over Shake's living room again to Shane's dismay.
That was fun having you guys here. Definitely should do it again.
It was.
Cool. Anything else? Should we wrap it there?
I got nothing. It was good, clean fun.
I got
Once.
nothing either. This was good. Something different.
It's good to pop out of the crypto bubble halfway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Alrighty.
All right, boys.
all right.
Peace.
See ya.
Dude,